Hello and welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to watch me draw these illustrations that are Genshin Impact fan arts. They were created for a Kaveh birthday multi-animator project that was organized by Meaty Doodles, and I'll have the final video linked in the description. And while you watch me draw these, I'm gonna blabber a little bit about Genshin. Genshin has been my favorite game outside of Pokemon for, it's gonna be 5 years now. I started playing Genshin back during 1.0. I was living with 2 roommates at the time and I came home. I was working a second shift job at the time, so I got home around 11:30 p.m. and my roommate was playing this cute anime game. And I just stared at Paimon on the screen for a bit. She was just so cute, this little floating baby. And I was like, what is this? And I'm sure they told me at the time, but I just called it Mihoyo for a while because that's what it said at the bottom of the icon. And then later that week, I asked them if I could play the cute anime game on their PS4. I didn't have my own PS4 at the time, but they were kind enough to set me up an account on theirs. And I got right into it. And before long, they would come home from their work later than I. And they'd be like, can I have my PS4 back? And I would not want to give it back. When I moved out, I bought my own PS4 because a gaming computer was outside of my budget. And I transferred all my stuff over to a new account there. And my PS4 became my expensive Genshin machine. For a while, it was also my streaming device, but since I got a Chromecast, it's gone back to being just for Genshin. One day I do hope I have a nice gaming PC, so it'll have use for more than one game. So anyway, as I was saying, these illustrations are for Kaveh's birthday, and in this first illustration is of the Traveler Twins and Paimon. The moderators did a great job splitting up everything and had everything scripted. This was one of my top 5 choices for parts I wanted to draw. I didn't end up getting any parts with Kaveh in it, which was a little disappointing, but also understandable because everyone that was involved in the multi-animator project, they were a big fan of Kaveh. He is one of my favorite Denjo units, so I can't help but love him. But there's also lots of other characters I like, and one of those is Paimon. In fact, I think a lot of people find her really annoying, so I really wanted to draw her because I love her so much, so I knew I could give her the attention she deserved. This was my first time drawing Ether, but I've drawn Moomin quite a few times since she's the one I play as. In this illustration, they are accepting a letter from Catherine at the Adventurers Guild in Fontaine. The original sketch, I had them just standing in a library, staring at it on a podium. But after I finished the initial sketch, the mod said that they wanted the travelers to be traveling. And so we talked about where they might get a letter as travelers, and the Adventurers Guild made the most sense. I decided to put them in Fontaine because it's my second favorite aesthetic of all the towns. Though I'll have to say I do regret not putting some Melusines in the background. I love Melusines, but there wasn't a whole lot of space left in the background anyway. Fun fact, I also designed the envelope that was used in this multi-animator project by everyone that was drawing in it. I always have liked Kaveh. To be honest, I have this one friend. She is probably my only IRL friend that actively still plays Genshin. And she was excited about Kaveh before he even came out. She was reading all the lore and all the communications, the letters that he left for Alhaitham and vice versa on the community boards in game. And she was very excited for him. I don't usually get too tied up in lore, but once he arrived, I absolutely fell for him. He's just so funny and cute, and I ship him and Alhaitham so hard. They are actually my favorite Genshin pairing. There's quite a few that I like and kind of consider canon, despite the censorship. But these two really just got me. I've mentioned before, I really like tsunderes, and they're both completely different flavors of tsunderes without that being their entire personality. They're so multifaceted, and I just think they're great together. Some people might argue that they're not tsundere, but I think they are different definitions of it. Kaveh exhibits more modern versions of tsunderes, where he gets embarrassed when he's being praised. He's very good at speaking his mind with Alhaitham most of the time. However, it's around other people when they are potentially finding out about him living with Alhaitham, when they are potentially finding out something that he might be embarrassed by, like him falling for a scam, that he gets embarrassed and reacts in a avoidance way. Those really do match up with more modern tsundere in a not always romantic sense, though I do think there's some romance to him being embarrassed when people find out he might be living with Alhaitham. Well, Alhaitham, I think, exhibits more classic tsundere traits, where he acts very uncaring and aloof most of the time. But when he is alone with someone that he cares about, he's shown to be much kinder and softer. Though he does still, of course, tease Kaveh all the time, and I think their relationship's just very funny. Even in the most recent event that took place in Sumeru, we got to see them, just their domestic friendliness, and Alhaitham telling Kaveh what groceries they had, and it was just a little different than what we were used to from Alhaitham, who often answers questions in a kind of roundabout way to annoy people, because he thinks it's kind of a waste of time. Anywho, I love these guys. Anytime they are featured together, I'm excited. I actually pulled for Alhaitham specifically to have him stand next to Kaveh in my teapot. I'm probably never going to play him because aesthetically he just does not fit any game that I play, and his personality is kind of boring versus the personalities that I tend to like in characters. If he wasn't Kaveh's soulmate, I probably wouldn't care all that much about him, but I don't really regret pulling for him. I just love having them standing around each other. I do wish that they had more synergy in battle. You just can kind of passenger princess Kaveh with him. Since Kaveh's a driver, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for him to work with an on-field DPS. Alright, and here is the finished illustration for the first part that I had in the project. As you can see, they're all looking very excited about a letter having been received, and what they're learning about is Kaveh's surprise party that Alhaitham is inviting them to. I actually had this animated so that it was zooming out a bit and Paimon was floating. The part in the project was only about a second and a half long, so the animation's a little different than what I'm showing you here. But I still hope that you look at the full project to see my pieces. And here's the second piece. The second piece features one of my favorite mains, Skara. I mean, that's his name in my game. He's the Wanderer, or Scaramouche, or Balladeer. He has quite a few names, doesn't he? I named him Skara because that's what I was calling him already, so why not just make it his name in game? He is lounging in a tree outside of Sumeru, and Sethos is coming running up with the letter. His invitation to Kaveh's party from Alhaitham. This one I was able to use my initial sketch for the full process. It was different than what was originally scripted. When I first received my part, I didn't have all the full details, just that it was the Wanderer in a tree and Sethos was coming up. Later, when I got the full scripted information, it did state that they were looking to have him outside of the Sanctuary of Starastana. However, they did allow me to continue to use the composition that I had created in this sketch, saying that it was still in character and realistic to canon. As I said before, I don't get super tied up in like lore that is just text and doesn't really take place in the game until it happens in the game. So I have to admit that I don't super get the Sethos and Skara pairing very much. I don't dislike it by any means, but I definitely wouldn't go out of my way to say that I ship it. So I do think that this maybe suffered a little bit because of that. I think if it was drawn by a Sethos Skara shipper, it could have turned out a lot different. However, I love Skara. He is one of my mains. I used him all the time before Veressa came out. My very first main was Zhongli, who you may have seen in a previous video, my ridiculous collection of. And then I had a lot of back and forth mains. It was Skara, it was Zhongli, it was Arlecchino, and now I'm just 100% Veressa all the time. But I just adored him. I liked the way that he flew, and I love his bratty personality. So I've drawn him a couple times before, and I really wanted to draw him again. He was also in my top 5 of the parts that I chose, so I was excited to draw him. I hope this part wasn't too much of a letdown for Sethos Skara shippers, since Sethos ended up pretty tiny in it. But I do like Sethos a lot. I wish I knew more about him, though. I only very recently got him in game, so I don't really know much about him outside of what was featured in his character quest. So I'm hoping to learn more about him soon. Maybe I can train him up and figure out who he works well with, and then I'll learn more through just playing as him. Switching gears a bit, I'd love to know if you guys play Genshin Impact 2. How long have you been playing it? And are you excited for Nodcry? I'm pretty excited for Nodcry. Outside of Veressa, I didn't like Natlin very much. I don't know. I think the biggest problem I have with it is how much all the characters get totally nerfed outside of Natlin. It's kind of annoying, but I'm also really trying to get the C1 on Veressa so that she can run at her top speed all the time. It doesn't really do that, but it allows her to use her Night Soul points slower so that by the time her skill recharges, she hasn't run out of Night Soul and I can just keep her running again and again and again. And though that might sound annoying, I absolutely love it. I tried really hard to get her weapon and her C1, but I managed to only pull her the one time while I was trying to get her. I forget what I lost the 50-50 on the weapon to. I think it was probably that spell book that I already had. And so here is the final illustration of Skara and Sethos. Please check out Ein Klein, which is the multi-animated project that this was created for. It's a beautiful work of art and everyone put a lot of heart into it. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you're enjoying my artwork, please subscribe. And I'll see you again next week. I'll have the last 10 to 15 art fight illustrations to show then. Thanks so much and bye-bye.